The champagne flutes clinked around me like tiny bells announcing my humiliation. I stood frozen near the dessert table at my cousin Sarah's engagement party, my fingers clutching a plate of untouched tiramisu so hard I thought the porcelain might crack. The country club's grand ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and the laughter of people who belonged here, people who weren't wearing a dress they'd bought on clearance 3 years ago. "Emma! There you are!" My stomach dropped. I knew that voice. Smooth, confident, with just enough false warmth to pass as friendly in public. I turned slowly, forcing my face into something resembling a smile. Marcus stood there in his tailored navy suit, his arm draped possessively around a blonde woman whose diamond necklace probably cost more than my annual salary as a kindergarten teacher. His smile was sharp, predatory, the same smile he'd worn when he told me I was too ordinary for his family's expectations, right before he left me for someone from his social circle. "Marcus," I managed to keep my voice steady. "Congratulations on your engagement. Thank you, thank you." He waved his hand dismissively, and I noticed his Rolex catching the light. "This is Victoria. Victoria, this is Emma. We dated briefly in college, briefly. 3 years condensed into a word that meant nothing." "Lovely to meet you," Victoria said with the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. I nodded, searching desperately for an escape route, but Marcus stepped closer, effectively trapping me against the table. The scent of his expensive cologne, different from what he used to wear, made my throat tight. "So, Emma," he said, his voice loud enough that nearby guests turned to look. "No wedding yet? I thought surely by now you'd have settled down. You were always so—" He paused, as if searching for the right word. "Domestic." Heat crept up my neck. Around us, conversations dimmed. I could feel eyes on me, my aunts, my cousins, old family friends, all witnessing this moment, all probably thinking the same thing. Poor Emma, still single, still struggling, still not good enough. "I'm focusing on my career," I said, hating how small my voice sounded. Marcus laughed and others joined in, that polite, uncomfortable laughter that felt like needles against my skin. "Your career? Teaching kindergarten? That's sweet, really, but hardly a career that requires such dedication that you can't—" "There you are, amore mio." The voice cut through the noise like a blade through silk. Deep, accented, commanding. The entire room seemed to pause. Conversations dying mid-sentence. I felt the shift in the air before I saw him. That electric change in atmosphere that happens when someone truly powerful enters a space. I turned. He stood at the entrance to the ballroom, and everything else seemed to fade into watercolor blurs around the sharp reality of him. Tall, easily over 6 feet, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble by an artist who understood both beauty and cruelty. His black suit was so perfectly tailored it seemed to have been painted onto his frame, and even from across the room I could see the subtle sheen of fabric that cost more than most people's cars. But it wasn't just his appearance that made the room hold its breath. It was the way he moved, fluid, purposeful, dangerous, like a panther who knew he was the apex predator. 2 men in dark suits flanked him, their eyes constantly scanning the room, hands positioned near their jackets in a way that made my pulse quicken. He walked toward me, and the crowd parted. Simply parted. People I'd known my whole life stepped back without even seeming to realize they were doing it, creating a clear path between us. His eyes never left mine. They were dark, almost black in the chandelier light, and they held something that made my breath catch. Recognition? No, that wasn't possible. I'd never seen this man before in my life. I would have remembered. The scent of him reached me first, bergamot and something darker, richer. Leather, maybe. Wood smoke, money, power. Things I had no business knowing the smell of. "I apologize for being late," he said. And even though the words were directed at me, his voice carried through the silent ballroom. His accent was Italian, smooth as aged whiskey. Business matters required my attention. He stopped directly in front of me, so close I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. One of his hands reached out, slowly, deliberately, and his fingers brushed against my jaw, tilting my face up toward his. His touch was warm, and I felt it all the way down to my toes. "You look exquisite tonight, tesoro," he murmured, and then he leaned down and pressed his lips to mine. The kiss was soft, almost chaste, but it burned. His hand slid from my jaw to the back of my neck, fingers tangling in my hair, and for a moment, just a heartbeat, the pressure of his mouth increased, deepened into something that promised danger and dark pleasures. When he pulled back, his thumb traced my lower lip, and his eyes held mine with an intensity that made my knees weak. "I've missed you," he said quietly, intimately, as if we were alone instead of standing in a room full of shocked spectators. My mind was screaming, "Who is this man? What is happening? Why is he—" But some instinct I didn't know I possessed kept me silent. Maybe it was the way his bodyguards had positioned themselves, creating a subtle barrier between us and the rest of the room. Maybe it was the dangerous edge beneath his gentleness, or maybe it was simply the fact that Marcus's face had gone pale, his expression shifting from smug superiority to something that looked almost like fear. I started, but the stranger's hand moved to my waist, pulling me against his side with a possessiveness that was unmistakable. "Forgive me," he said, finally acknowledging the people around us. His gaze swept the room with the casual indifference of a king surveying his subjects. "I don't believe I've been introduced to your friends, cara mia." His hand tightened almost imperceptibly on my waist. A warning? A request? I didn't know, but I found myself speaking anyway. "This is Marcus, and his fiancée, Victoria." The single syllable carried weight. The stranger extended his free hand toward Marcus, who hesitated before taking it. "Dante Valentino." I felt Marcus's recognition in the way his handshake faltered, the way his face went from pale to ashen. Victoria's eyes widened, and she took a small step back. "Mr. Valentino," Marcus stammered. "I didn't realize that Emma was my wife," Dante finished, his tone pleasant but edged with something sharp. "Yes. We prefer to keep our private life private. You understand, I'm sure. Wife." The word echoed in my head like a gunshot. This man, this stranger who radiated danger and power, had just claimed me as his wife in front of everyone I knew. I should have said something, denied it, laughed it off as a misunderstanding. But Dante's fingers pressed against my waist, a silent communication, and I stayed quiet, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Of course," Marcus said quickly. "Of course. We should— Victoria, we should let them—" They retreated, practically stumbling over themselves, and I watched as whispers erupted throughout the ballroom. My aunts were clutching each other's arms. My cousin Sarah stood frozen near her fiancé, her mouth slightly open. Dante turned me toward him, both hands now on my waist, his body a wall between me and the staring crowd. "Play along," he whispered, his lips barely moving. "Per favore. I'll explain everything, but right now, you need to trust me." "I don't even know you," I breathed back, my hands instinctively coming up to rest against his chest. Beneath the expensive fabric, I could feel the solid muscle, the steady beat of his heart. "No," he agreed, and something flickered in his eyes. Regret? Amusement? "But your father did. My father. Dead for 6 months now, after a sudden heart attack that had left me drowning in grief and his debts. My father, who'd been a gentle accountant, who'd taught me to ride a bike and helped me with my homework, and never ever mentioned knowing anyone like the man standing before me." "What?" I started, but Dante shook his head slightly. "Not here." His hand moved to cup my face again, the gesture tender but his eyes alert, watching the room over my shoulder. "Come with me. Let me take you somewhere we can talk privately." It was insane, dangerous. I should have screamed, should have run, should have called for help. Instead, I found myself nodding. Dante's smile was slight but genuine. He took my hand, his palm rough with calluses that seemed wrong for someone who wore suits that expensive, and led me through the crowd. His bodyguards fell into step around us, creating a protective formation that made people move aside without even being asked. At the entrance, one of the bodyguards handed Dante a phone, whispering something urgent in rapid Italian. Dante's jaw tightened, and he responded in the same language, his tone clipped and commanding. Outside, a black Mercedes SUV waited, its windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. Another SUV idled behind it, filled with more men in dark suits. "Mr. Valentino," one of the bodyguards said, opening the rear door. "We should move quickly." Dante helped me into the car with a hand at my elbow, and I sank into leather seats, softer than anything I'd ever touched. He slid in beside me, and the door closed with a heavy, final thunk that sounded like a vault ceiling. The car began moving immediately, pulling away from the country club with the second SUV following close behind. In the intimate darkness of the back seat, lit only by the passing streetlights, Dante turned to face me. His expression was serious now, all traces of the gentle lover gone. "I know you're frightened," he said, "and confused. But I need you to understand something, Emma." He paused, his hand reaching out to take mine again. "6 months ago, your father came to me with a problem. A very serious problem involving Marcus Romano and his family." My breath caught. "What kind of problem?" Dante's thumb stroked across my knuckles, an absent gesture that somehow felt more intimate than the kiss had been. "The kind that gets people killed." The city lights blurred past the tinted windows as we drove through streets I didn't recognize. My hand remained caught in Dante's grip, and I couldn't tell if I was more afraid of pulling away or of what might happen if I didn't. "My father," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "was an accountant. He did taxes for small businesses. He wasn't involved in anything that could get people killed." Dante's expression softened slightly, but his eyes remained sharp, watchful. "Your father was a good man, an honest man. That's precisely why Marcus's family targeted him." "I don't understand." The SUV turned sharply, and I felt Dante's arm move around my shoulders, steadying me. Through the partition, I could see our driver's eyes constantly checking the mirrors, and the second vehicle stayed close behind us like a shadow. "The Romano family," Dante began, his accent wrapping around the words like smoke. "They present themselves as legitimate businessmen, real estate developers, import-export, but beneath that facade, they run one of the largest money laundering operations on the East Coast." He paused, studying my face. "Your father discovered this 6 months ago when Marcus's father, Vincent Romano, hired him to handle some accounts." My stomach twisted. I remembered that time. Dad had seemed stressed, distracted. He'd lost weight, stopped sleeping well. I'd attributed it to grief over Mom's death the year before, never imagining. "He found irregularities," I said slowly. "That's what you're telling me." "More than irregularities. He found evidence of everything: shell corporations, offshore accounts, connections to drug trafficking and weapons dealing. Enough to put the entire Romano family in prison for life." Dante's hand tightened on mine, and when Vincent realized your father had seen too much, he decided to eliminate the problem. The words hung in the air between us, cold and terrible. "The heart attack," I breathed. It wasn't natural." Dante's voice was gentle but firm. "I'm sorry, Emma. Your father came to me 3 days before he died. He knew he was in danger, and he asked me to protect the one thing that mattered to him. You." Tears burned behind my eyes, but I blinked them back. "Why would he come to you? Who are you?" Dante was quiet for a moment, his gaze drifting to the window. "I am many things, Tesoro, most of them not good. But I am a man who honors his debts. And your father once did me a great service when I first came to this country. He helped me legitimize my businesses, asked no questions, took no payment beyond what was fair." He looked back at me. When he appeared at my door, terrified and desperate, I could not turn him away. "So you promised to protect me." My voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. "And tonight, when I heard Marcus Romano was going to be at your cousin's party, I knew he would try to humiliate you, to make you seem small and insignificant." Dante's jaw clenched. "The Romanos have been watching you, Emma, waiting to see if your father told you anything before he died. Marcus volunteering to torment you publicly was his way of proving to his family that you're harmless." Irrelevant. The SUV slowed, and I realized we were pulling into an underground parking garage. Not just any garage. This one had a guard station, barriers, cameras everywhere. The kind of security you saw in movies about government facilities. "Where are we?" I asked. "My home." Dante helped me out of the vehicle, his hand firm on my elbow. You'll be safe here. The elevator we entered required both a key card and a fingerprint scan. As we ascended, I caught my reflection in the polished metal doors, pale, wide-eyed, still wearing my clearance dress that suddenly felt even more out of place. Beside me, Dante stood perfectly still, but I could sense the coiled tension in him, the constant awareness of his bodyguards flanking us. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse apartment that stole what little breath I had left. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and the space was decorated in shades of black, gray, and deep burgundy. Everything was expensive, minimalist, and somehow masculine in a way that made my skin tingle. "Sit," Dante said, guiding me to a leather sofa that probably cost more than my car. "I'll get you something to drink." He moved to a bar cart, while his bodyguards took positions by the elevator and near the windows. I watched him pour amber liquid into crystal glasses, his movements efficient and practiced. When he returned, he pressed one into my shaking hands. "Whiskey," he said. "Drink. It will help with the shock." I obeyed, and the liquor burned its way down my throat, spreading warmth through my chest. Dante sat beside me, close but not touching, and took a measured sip from his own glass. "I need you to understand the situation fully," he said. "The Romanos believe your father died before he could tell you anything. They've been monitoring you these past months, and you've given them no reason to think otherwise. You live your quiet life, teaching children, paying off his debts. You seem harmless." "I am harmless," I protested weakly. Dante's smile was sad. "That's what makes you dangerous to them, Kara. Because a harmless woman can disappear without much notice. An accident, a robbery gone wrong, a tragic suicide from grief. Who would question it too closely?" The whiskey turned to ice in my stomach. "They're going to kill me. They were considering it. But now—" He set down his glass and turned to face me fully. "Now, you're my wife. And that changes everything." "We're not actually married," I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew how naive they sounded. In the eyes of everyone at that party, we are. And by tomorrow morning, the news will have spread through both our worlds. Emma Hartley, kindergarten teacher, is married to Dante Valentino. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. "Do you know what name means in certain circles?" I shook my head mutely. "It means the Romanos cannot touch you without starting a war they cannot win." His fingers lingered against my cheek. "It means you're under my protection. And anyone who harms you will answer to me and my family. It means you're safe, Emma, as long as you stay by my side." "But it's a lie," I whispered. "We're not really. Does it matter?" Dante's thumb traced my jawline, and I shivered. "A lie that keeps you alive is more valuable than a truth that gets you killed." I wanted to argue, to insist that there had to be another way. But I looked into his dark eyes and saw something that terrified me more than anything else that had happened tonight. I saw truth. Cold, brutal truth that said I was already dead unless I accepted his protection. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "For now, simply to let me keep you safe." He withdrew his hand, and I felt the absence of his touch like a chill. "You'll stay here, in my home. We'll be seen together in public. You'll wear my ring, attend events by my side, and play the role of my devoted wife." "For how long?" Dante stood, walking to the windows to look out over the glittering city. His reflection in the glass was dark, imposing. "Until I can eliminate the threat the Romanos pose. Until I have enough evidence to destroy them completely, or until they're no longer in a position to hurt you. And then—" He turned back to face me, and something flickered across his features. Something I couldn't quite read. "And then you'll be free to go, if that's what you wish. I'll give you money, a new identity if necessary. You can start over somewhere far from here." It should have been reassuring. It should have felt like he was offering me a lifeline. Instead, I felt something twist in my chest, sharp and unexpected. "I have a life here," I said. "My students, my apartment, my family. Your family will understand better than you think." Dante moved back toward me, crouching down so we were at eye level. "The story will be that we met months ago and married in secret. You'll tell them you wanted to keep it private until you were sure, and now that Marcus has forced the issue, we're coming forward." They'll believe it because they want to believe it. Because it's better than the truth, which is that their sweet Emma is married to a monster. His smile was sharp, self-deprecating. Make no mistake about what I am, Tesoro. I am not a good man. The business I run, the things I've done to build my empire. You would not sleep at night if you knew the details. I should have been horrified, should have demanded he let me go, insisted I'd take my chances with the Romanos. But instead, I found myself asking, then why help me? If you're such a monster, why keep a promise to a dead man? Dante's expression softened, and he reached out to take my hand again. Because even monsters have codes, Emma. And your father saved my life once. He could have turned me into the authorities when he first discovered who I really was. Instead, he helped me, asked only that I use my power for something good when I could. He brought my knuckles to his lips, pressing a kiss there that seemed to burn through my skin. Protecting you is the most good I've done in years. Before I could respond, one of the bodyguards cleared his throat. Boss, we have a situation. Dante's demeanor changed instantly. The gentle man crouching before me vanished, replaced by someone cold and commanding. He stood, releasing my hand. What is it, Carlo? Vincent Romano just called. He wants to meet. Tomorrow noon at the usual place. Carlo's expression was grim. He says it's about your new wife. Dante's jaw tightened, and I saw his hands curl into fists at his sides. Of course he does. He turned back to me. Emma, I need to make some calls. Carlo will show you to the bedroom. It's late, and you need rest. We'll talk more in the morning. But, please. His voice was gentle again, but there was steel beneath it. Trust me a little longer. Carlo approached, his expression professionally neutral, and I found myself standing, following him down a hallway lined with abstract art that probably cost more than my entire education. He opened a door to reveal a bedroom that was larger than my entire apartment. The bed was enormous, covered in charcoal gray silk sheets. Through another doorway, I could see a bathroom with marble everything and a shower that could fit 4 people. Mr. Valentino's room is next door, Carlo said. If you need anything, there's an intercom by the bed. Press 1 for the kitchen, 2 for security, 3 for Mr. Valentino's private line. Thank you, I managed. He nodded and left, closing the door quietly behind him. Alone for the first time since Dante had walked into that ballroom, I felt my legs give out. I sank onto the edge of the bed, my mind spinning with everything that had happened. My father had been murdered. I was being hunted by a crime family, and I was now pretending to be married to a man who openly admitted to being a monster. I looked down at my bare ring finger, wondering what Dante's ring would look like on it. Wondering what it would feel like to really be his wife, not just in name, but in truth. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it made heat pool low in my belly, a sensation I quickly tried to suppress. Through the walls, I could hear Dante's voice, low, rapid Italian that sounded both musical and dangerous. I couldn't understand the words, but I understood the tone. He was angry, making threats, asserting dominance, protecting me. I lay back on the bed, still fully dressed, and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, I would demand more answers. Tomorrow, I would figure out what to tell my family, how to navigate this impossible situation. But tonight, surrounded by the scent of expensive cologne and the distant sound of Dante's voice, I let myself feel something I hadn't felt in 6 months, safe. Even if it was only an illusion, even if it was wrapped in danger and lies, I felt safe, and that terrified me more than anything else. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows I didn't recognize, tangled in silk sheets that cost more than my monthly rent. For a disorienting moment, I thought I'd dreamed everything: the party, Marcus's humiliation, Dante's sudden appearance claiming me as his wife. Then I saw the dress I'd worn last night draped carefully over a chair, and reality crashed back. A soft knock on the door made me sit up, clutching the sheets. Yes? It's Maria, Miss Emma. The voice was female, accented, warm. Mr. Valentino asked me to bring you breakfast and help you get ready for the day. I wrapped the sheet around myself and opened the door. A woman in her 50s stood there with a kind smile, holding a tray that smelled like heaven. Fresh coffee, pastries, fruit. "I'm Maria, Mr. Valentino's housekeeper," she said, setting the tray on a table near the window. "He wanted to let you sleep, but you have an appointment at 11. "An appointment?" Maria's smile widened. "For your ring, Cara. Mr. Valentino has arranged for a private showing from Cartier. They're bringing selections here." She moved to the closet. When had someone filled it with clothes? And began pulling out options. "But first breakfast. You're too thin. Mr. Valentino won't like it." I wanted to argue that what Dante liked or didn't like about my body was irrelevant, but my stomach growled traitorously at the smell of food. I sat down and took a tentative sip of coffee. Perfect. Exactly how I liked it. "How did you know?" I asked. "Mr. Valentino is very thorough," Maria said, her tone suggesting this was the highest compliment. "He had his people find out everything about you yesterday. Your coffee preference, your clothing size, your favorite foods." She laid out a cream-colored dress that looked simultaneously elegant and understated. "He wants you comfortable here." The idea of Dante having me investigated should have felt invasive. Instead, something warm bloomed in my chest, the same treacherous warmth from last night when his hands had been on my waist, when he'd called me his wife with such convincing possessiveness. I ate while Maria bustled around preparing the bathroom. By the time I'd finished, she'd laid out towels, toiletries, all high-end brands I recognized from magazines but had never imagined using, and even makeup that matched my skin tone perfectly. "Shower. Then I'll help with your hair and makeup," Maria instructed. "Mr. Valentino is in meetings, but he'll want to see you before the jeweler arrives." The shower was an experience unto itself. Multiple jets, water pressure that felt like a massage, and products that smelled like jasmine and vanilla. I found myself standing under the spray longer than necessary, trying to wash away the surreal nature of my new reality. When I emerged, wrapped in a towel that was somehow both impossibly soft and substantial, Maria was waiting. She worked efficiently, drying my hair, styling it in loose waves, applying makeup that made me look like a polished version of myself. The cream dress fit perfectly, hugging my curves in ways my usual clothes never did. "Beautiful," Maria pronounced, stepping back. "Mr. Valentino will be very pleased." She led me through the penthouse, and in daylight, I could see details I'd missed last night. The art on the walls wasn't just expensive, it was museum quality. Through open doors, I glimpsed a library with leather-bound books, a home office with multiple monitors, a gym that looked like something from a luxury hotel. We found Dante in what appeared to be a formal dining room, standing near windows that overlooked the city, a phone pressed to his ear. He was speaking rapid Italian again, but when he saw me, he paused mid-sentence. His eyes traveled from my face down to my feet and back up, slow and deliberate. The intensity of his gaze made heat crawl up my neck. "Ti richiamo," he said into the phone. "I'd call you back," and ended the call without waiting for a response. He crossed the room toward me, and I was struck again by how he moved, predatory and graceful. "You look stunning," he said, and the compliment felt different from the false flattery I'd received from men before. This felt like observation, statement of fact. "Maria said something about a jeweler?" I managed, trying to ignore the way my pulse had quickened at his proximity. "Yes." Dante's hand came up to my face, tilting my chin so I had to meet his eyes. "We're making this official, Tesoro. You need a ring that matches the story we're telling." His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. "And I won't have my wife wearing anything less than perfection." "I'm not really your wife," I said, but the protest sounded weak even to my own ears. "For the next few months, you are. In every way that matters." His hand dropped, but he stayed close. "The Romanos will be watching everything we do. Every detail must be convincing. About that. The meeting with Vincent Romano today. You don't need to worry about it." Dante's expression hardened. "You're staying here where it's safe. I have business to conduct, and I won't risk you being used as leverage. But if he wants to talk about me, then I will handle it." His tone left no room for argument. "This is not negotiable, Emma. You stay here, protected, while I deal with the threat." Before I could respond, the elevator chimed. Carlo emerged with 2 other bodyguards, and a nervous-looking man in an expensive suit carrying several leather cases. "Mr. Valentino," the jeweler said, his voice slightly shaky. "As requested, I've brought our finest pieces." Dante guided me to the dining table, pulling out a chair with old-world courtesy that seemed at odds with everything else about him. The jeweler opened his cases with reverent care, revealing rows of engagement rings that sparkled under the chandelier light. Each one was extraordinary, diamonds surrounded by sapphires, emerald-cut solitaires, vintage Art Deco designs, the kind of rings I'd looked at in magazines and websites late at night, knowing I'd never wear anything like them. "Choose," Dante said, standing behind my chair, his hands resting on my shoulders. The weight of them was warm, grounding. "I can't," I breathed. "These must cost." "Money is not an object." His fingers tightened slightly. "Choose the one that speaks to you, Kara." I looked over the display, overwhelmed. Then my eyes caught on a ring toward the back. Simpler than the others, but somehow more elegant. A single oval diamond set in platinum, with small diamonds along the band. Classic. Timeless. Understated. "That one," I said, pointing. Dante reached past me, lifting it from the case. "An excellent choice," the jeweler said quickly. 3 carats, internally flawless, D-color. "May I?" Dante interrupted, kneeling beside my chair. He took my left hand, and I felt my breath catch as he slid the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. He'd had me investigated, knew my size. The diamond caught the light, throwing rainbow prisms across the table. On my hand, my ordinary hand that grated children's papers and wiped paint off tiny fingers, it looked like something from another world. Dante didn't release my hand. Instead, he brought it to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles just below the ring. "Perfect," he murmured, his eyes meeting mine. "Just like its wearer." The jeweler cleared his throat. "And the wedding band? Perhaps something with channel-set diamonds." "She'll choose that when she's ready," Dante said, standing but keeping hold of my hand. He turned to the jeweler. "Send the bill to my office." "Of course, Mr. Valentino. And might I say, congratulations on your marriage. Your wife is very fortunate." After the jeweler left with his cases and bodyguard escort, Dante pulled me to my feet. "I need to leave for my meeting," he said. "But there's something you should know first." He led me to his office, closing the door behind us. The room was masculine, dominated by a massive desk and more floor-to-ceiling windows. He pulled out a drawer and extracted a manila folder, handing it to me. "What is this?" I asked. "Everything my investigators found on Marcus and his family. Your father compiled some of it. The rest we've gathered over the past 6 months." Dante's expression was grave. "You deserve to know what you're caught up in." I opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside were documents, photographs, financial records. But what made my blood run cold was the first photograph. Marcus, younger, maybe college age, standing beside a man I recognized as his father. Between them was another young man, beaten bloody, his face barely recognizable. "That's what they do to people who cross them," Dante said quietly. "That young man worked for Vincent Romano, and he made the mistake of skimming money. They found him in the river 3 days after that photo was taken." I flipped through more pages, evidence of bribes, blackmail, connections to drug trafficking, and then I saw it. A document in my father's handwriting, notes about offshore accounts, dates, transactions. He was building a case against them, I whispered. "Yes." "And when Vincent realized it, he had your father eliminated, made it look natural. The right injection can cause a heart attack that's nearly impossible to detect without a very specific autopsy." Dante moved closer. "That's who we're dealing with, Emma. Men who kill without hesitation, who see human life as an inconvenience to be removed." I closed the folder, my hands trembling. "And you're different?" His smile was cold. "I never claimed to be, but I have rules. I don't kill innocent people. I don't traffic in drugs or weapons. And I sure as hell don't touch women or children." He took the folder from me, setting it aside, then cupped my face in both hands. "Your father knew the difference. That's why he came to me." "What happens at this meeting?" I asked. "Vincent will try to assess how real our marriage is. He'll make threats, try to find weaknesses. Dante's thumb stroked my cheeks. But he's in a difficult position. If he moves against you now, it's a declaration of war, and his family isn't strong enough to survive a war with mine. So I'm safe because you're more dangerous than they are. Essentially, yes. He didn't look away, didn't try to soften the truth. But Emma, you need to understand something. This protection comes with complications. The people in my world, they'll be watching you, judging you. Some will try to befriend you to get to me. Others will see you as a weakness to exploit. You'll need to be careful, always. I don't know how to navigate that world, I admitted. You'll learn, and I'll teach you. He released my face but took my hand, his fingers intertwining with mine. For now, stay here. Maria will keep you company, and security will be outside every door. Don't leave the penthouse for any reason. Do you understand? I nodded, and he seemed satisfied. He started to turn away, but I caught his arm. Dante, be careful. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, maybe, or pleasure. Are you worried about me, Tesoro? I don't know what happens to me if something happens to you. It was practical reasoning, self-preservation, but the way his expression softened suggested he heard something else in my words. Nothing will happen to me, he said. He pulled me close, his hand sliding into my hair as he tilted my face up. But I appreciate your concern. He kissed me then, not the chaste press of lips from last night, but something deeper, more possessive. His mouth moved against mine with practiced skill, coaxing a response I gave without thinking. When his tongue traced my lower lip, I gasped, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss until my knees felt weak. When he pulled back, we were both breathing hard. His thumb traced my swollen lower lip. When I get back, he murmured, his voice rough, we need to discuss sleeping arrangements. It won't be convincing if my wife sleeps in a separate room. Heat flooded through me, anticipation mixed with anxiety. Dante, I won't touch you, he said quickly, not unless you want me to. But we share a bed, Emma. That's non-negotiable. He pressed one more soft kiss to my forehead. I'll be back by evening. Be good. Then he was gone, his bodyguards trailing after him, leaving me standing in his office with a diamond on my finger, and the taste of him still on my lips. I looked down at the ring, watching light dance across its facets. Less than 24 hours ago, I'd been standing in my cousin's engagement party, humiliated and alone. Now I wore a 3-carat diamond and the protection of a man who openly admitted to being a monster. I should have been terrified. Instead, I was starting to wonder what would happen when this arrangement ended, when I was supposed to walk away and return to my normal life. Because standing there in Dante's office, surrounded by the evidence of his power and danger, I wasn't sure I'd be able to. The hours crawled by with agonizing slowness. Maria tried to keep me occupied, showing me the penthouse, explaining the household routines, teaching me some basic Italian phrases that she insisted I'd need. But my mind kept drifting to Dante, sitting across from Vincent Romano, negotiating my life like a business transaction. Around 3 p.m, my phone buzzed. I'd almost forgotten about it, left in my purse from last night. The screen showed 17 missed calls from my cousin Sarah, 12 from various aunts, and countless text messages. Sarah's most recent text read, Emma, call me right now. You're married to Dante Valentino? Why didn't you tell anyone? Everyone is losing their minds. I stared at the phone, my thumb hovering over the callback button. What was I supposed to say? That yes, I'd secretly married a man I'd never mentioned? That the whole thing was a lie designed to keep me from being murdered? Before I could decide, the phone rang. Sarah, I answered. Emma! Oh my God, finally! Sarah's voice was breathless with excitement. Is it true? Are you really married to him? Sarah, He's gorgeous. And did you see Marcus's face? I thought he was going to pass out. Victoria kept asking everyone who Dante Valentino was, and when Uncle Robert told her, she went pale. Sarah laughed, gleeful. Emma, do you know what this means? Marcus dumped you because you weren't good enough for his family, and you ended up married to someone who makes the Romanos look like... Sarah, stop. I closed my eyes, trying to steady my voice. It's complicated. Complicated how? Emma, That man looked at you like you were the only person in the room. When he kissed you, I swear half the women there were ready to fight you for him." She paused. "Why didn't you tell me? I'm your cousin. I thought we told each other everything." Guilt twisted in my chest. Sarah and I had been close our whole lives. She'd held me when my mother died, had been the one to find me sobbing in my apartment after my father's funeral. "I wanted to keep it private," I said, hating the lie. "We met months ago, and everything happened so fast. I wasn't sure how to explain it to the family." "But you're sure now? You're happy?" Was I? 24 hours ago, I would have laughed at the question. Now, wearing Dante's ring, surrounded by his protection, still tasting his kiss on my lips, I didn't know how to answer. "I'm safe," I said finally. For the first time in months, I feel safe. It wasn't a lie, even if the reasons behind it were. Sarah seemed to accept this. We talked for another 20 minutes, her excitement infectious as she relayed how the party had erupted into gossip after we'd left, how my aunts were already planning a reception, how Marcus had left early with Victoria, looking sick. After we hung up, I sat staring at the city skyline, thinking about Marcus, about how he'd stood there with his perfect fiancée and his expensive watch, determined to make me feel small. How he'd looked at me like I was nothing, and then Dante had appeared, and everything had shifted. My phone buzzed again, this time an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me. "Hello?" "Emma Hartley." The voice was smooth, cultured, male, unfamiliar. Or should I say, Emma Valentino? My blood ran cold. "Who is this?" "Someone who's very interested in your sudden marriage to Dante Valentino." A pause. "Tell me, does your new husband know about the insurance policy your father took out? The one with you as the beneficiary?" I stood up, my heart hammering. "I don't know what you're talking about." "No? That's interesting, because I have the policy right here. $2 million, Emma. Paid out 6 months ago after your father's unfortunate heart attack." The voice took on a mocking tone, quite a windfall for a kindergarten teacher living in a tiny apartment, paying off debts. Where did all that money go, I wonder? "There was no insurance policy," I said, but my voice shook. "My father had nothing. Your father was smarter than you think. He knew he was in danger, so he prepared. Took out a policy, made sure you'd be taken care of. The question is, what did he tell you before he died? What did he give you?" "Nothing. He told me nothing." "I don't believe you." The voice hardened. "And neither does Vincent Romano. Your little marriage stunt might have delayed the inevitable, but it won't stop it. Sooner or later, we'll get what we need from you. The only question is how much you'll suffer first." The line went dead. I stood frozen, the phone slipping from my numb fingers. An insurance policy? $2 million? My father had never mentioned anything like that. After his death, I'd found only debts, his mortgage, medical bills from my mother's cancer treatment, credit cards maxed out trying to keep afloat. Unless... I ran to the bedroom, grabbing my purse. Inside was my wallet, and tucked behind my driver's license was a business card I'd found in my father's desk after he died. I'd kept it meaning to call, but grief and stress had made me forget. The card was simple, cream-colored. Whitmore and Associates, estate planning. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and dialed. A receptionist answered on the second ring. "Whitmore and Associates, how may I help you?" "My name is Emma Hartley. My father, James Hartley, died 6 months ago. I found your card in his effects, and I need to know if he had any business with your firm." "One moment, please." The hold music felt like it lasted hours. Finally, a man's voice came on the line. "Miss Hartley, this is Richard Whitmore. I'm very sorry for your loss. Your father was a client of mine, yes. Did he..." I had to stop, swallow. "Did he take out a life insurance policy?" Silence. Then, "Miss Hartley, I think it would be best if we met in person. Your father left specific instructions about when and how certain information should be released to you. Tell me now," I demanded. "Please, people are threatening me, and I need to know." "You're in danger?" His voice sharpened. Miss Hartley, where are you right now? I'm safe. I'm with... I stopped. Should I tell him about Dante? Could I trust anyone? Your father anticipated this, Whitmore said carefully. He was very specific about the circumstances under which I should contact you. One of those circumstances was if you reported feeling threatened or unsafe. A pause. Miss Hartley, your father didn't just leave you an insurance policy. He left you something much more valuable and much more dangerous. Before I could respond, I heard voices in the penthouse, Dante's voice, sharp with anger, speaking rapid Italian. He was back. I have to go, I said, but I need to meet with you. Tomorrow, I'll make myself available whenever you need. But Miss Hartley, be very careful who you trust. Your father was killed because of what he knew. Don't make his mistake of underestimating these people. I ended the call just as Dante appeared in the bedroom doorway. His suit jacket was gone, his tie loosened, and there was a darkness in his expression that made my stomach clench. You're back, I said unnecessarily. The meeting didn't go well. He moved into the room, and I saw a bruise forming along his jaw. Vincent knows we're lying about the marriage. He doesn't believe we've been together for months. He thinks this is a ploy, and he's determined to prove it. What does that mean? Dante's eyes found mine, and what I saw there made my breath catch. It means we need to be more convincing. Starting now. He crossed to me, his hands coming up to frame my face. I told Vincent that we've been discreet because you're a private person, that you were scared of my world. I told him that I pursued you for months before you finally agreed to marry me. And he's invited us to dinner tomorrow night at his estate with Marcus and Victoria. Dante's jaw clenched. He wants to see us together, wants to assess whether this is real. My pulse raced. That's dangerous. Extremely. But refusing would be more dangerous. It would confirm his suspicions. His thumb stroked my cheeks. Emma, at this dinner, you need to act like my wife. Not a woman I'm protecting out of obligation, but someone I'm desperately in love with. Someone I'd kill for. Someone I can't keep my hands off. Heat pooled low in my belly at his words. I'm not an actress, Dante. You don't need to be. Just follow my lead. He leaned down, his lips brushing against my ear. Let me touch you. Don't pull away when I'm possessive. Act like you want me as much as I... He stopped abruptly, pulling back. As much as you what? I whispered. His eyes were dark, intense. As much as I need you to seem like you want me. But something in his tone suggested that wasn't what he'd been about to say. Dante, there's something I need to tell you. I took a breath. Someone called me today. They knew about an insurance policy my father supposedly took out. They said, an insurance policy? Dante's entire demeanor changed, became alert, predatory. For how much? $2 million. But I never received any money like that. I don't even know if it's real. Dante was already moving, pulling out his phone. He barked orders in Italian, then turned back to me. Who called you? What number? I showed him, and he forwarded it immediately to someone, speaking rapidly. When he finished, he looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. Your father was even smarter than I realized, he said quietly. Emma, if there's an insurance policy, and if the Romanos think you have access to $2 million that they believe rightfully belongs to them, why would they think it's theirs? Because they probably financed it, thinking your father would give them the beneficiary designation as collateral for his silence. Instead, he named you and died before they could change it. Dante ran a hand through his hair. This makes you even more valuable to them, and more dangerous. I called the estate lawyer, I admitted. My father left something with him. He wants to meet. Dante's expression darkened. You don't meet with anyone without me present. Do you understand? No one. He gripped my shoulders. Emma, the Romanos will be listening to every call, following every move. If you go anywhere alone, you're dead. Then come with me, I said. Tomorrow, before the dinner, let's find out what my father left. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. We'll go together. But tonight, he looked around the bedroom, at the bed I'd slept in alone last night. Tonight, you move your things to my room. Dante, This isn't negotiable anymore. His voice was firm, but not unkind. The staff will talk. Security will talk. Everyone will know if we're sleeping in separate rooms, and that information will get back to the Romanos. He moved closer, his hands sliding down my arms. I meant what I said earlier. I won't touch you unless you want me to. But we share a bed. We wake up together. And to anyone watching, we look like a couple who can't get enough of each other. I should have argued, should have insisted on boundaries, but standing there with his hands on me, his scent surrounding me, I found myself nodding. Okay, I whispered. Something flashed in his eyes, triumph, relief, hunger. Before I could identify it, he kissed me. Slower than this morning, deeper, his tongue sliding against mine in a way that made my toes curl. One hand tangled in my hair, while the other pressed against the small of my back, pulling me flush against him. I could feel every hard plane of his body, the contained strength in his arms, the barely controlled passion in the way his mouth moved against mine. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. We should practice, he said, his voice rough. For tomorrow night. We need to be comfortable with each other, natural. Is that what this is? I asked breathlessly. Practice? His smile was dangerous, if you want it to be. He released me, stepping back. Have Maria help you move your things to my room. I need to make more calls, increase security. But Emma? He turned back at the doorway. Tonight, when you're lying next to me in that bed, remember something. You're safe. No matter what happens, no matter what Vincent Romano plans, you're safe with me. After he left, I sank onto the bed, my lips still tingling from his kiss. Safe. That word again. But as I touched the diamond on my finger and thought about tomorrow, meeting with my father's lawyer, having dinner with the people who'd murdered him, pretending to be desperately in love with a man who was both my protector and my captor, I wasn't sure safe was the right word. Trapped, maybe, or bound, or possibly terrifyingly falling. That night, lying in Dante's bed felt surreal. The room was different from the guest room, darker, more masculine, with the scent of him embedded in every surface. He'd given me space to change in the bathroom, and when I emerged in simple cotton pajamas, I found him already in bed, shirtless, the sheets pooled at his waist. The lamp on his nightstand cast shadows across the defined muscles of his chest and abdomen, and I had to force myself not to stare. Come, he said softly, pulling back the covers on my side. I slid in, hyper-aware of every point where our bodies didn't touch, and yet somehow the space between us felt charged, electric. He turned off the light, and darkness enveloped us. Emma? His voice came through the dark. Tell me about your father. Not the accountant? Not the man who got caught up with the Romanos? Tell me about your dad. The request surprised me. I rolled onto my side, facing where I knew he was. Why? Because I promised to protect his daughter. But I realize I never really knew him beyond our business dealings, and if I'm going to understand what he left for you, what he was trying to protect, I need to understand who he was. So I told him. About Saturday morning pancakes and terrible dad jokes, about how my father had taught me to ride a bike, running alongside me until I found my balance, about how he'd cried at my college graduation, proud and heartbroken all at once, about how, after my mother died, he'd tried so hard to be both parents, even though grief was crushing him. Dante listened in silence, and when I finished, I felt his hand find mine beneath the sheets. He sounds like he was a good man, Dante said quietly. The world has too few of those. And you? I asked. Tell me about you. Who was Dante Valentino before he became... this? A long pause. Then, a scared boy from Naples who watched his father beaten to death for owing money to the wrong people. A teenager who learned that power is the only thing that matters in this world. That being good gets you killed. His thumb traced circles on my palm. I came to America with nothing, Emma. I built everything through blood and violence and calculated risks. Your father was the first person who saw something in me worth saving. What did he see? I don't know. But he helped me anyway. Set up my first legitimate business. Gave me advice. Treated me like I was worth something beyond the money I could make, or the fear I could inspire. Dante's voice was raw in the darkness. When he came to me 6 months ago, terrified and dying, I wanted to kill Vincent Romano with my bare hands. But your father made me promise something first. What? That I'd protect you, that I wouldn't let his death destroy you the way my father's death destroyed me. He shifted closer, and I felt the heat of his body. He said you were good, Emma, pure, that the world needed people like you, and it was worth any price to keep you safe. Tears burned behind my eyes. I'm not that good. You're better than you think. His hand came up to my face in the darkness, finding my cheek with unerring accuracy. And definitely better than me. Dante, sleep, tesoro. Tomorrow will be difficult. But sleep was elusive. I lay there, feeling the weight of his hand on my cheek, the warmth of him beside me, and wondered what my father would think of this arrangement. Would he approve? Or would he be horrified that his attempt to protect me had bound me to someone like Dante? Eventually, exhaustion won. I drifted off to the sound of Dante's breathing, steady and calm beside me. Morning came too quickly. I woke to find myself curled against Dante's chest, his arm around me, my face pressed to his shoulder. For a moment, still half asleep, it felt natural. Right. Then reality crashed back, and I started to pull away. Don't, Dante murmured, his voice rough with sleep. Stay, just for a moment. So I did, feeling his heartbeat under my palm, the rise and fall of his chest. His hand stroked my hair absently, and I wondered if he even realized he was doing it. We should get ready, I finally whispered. The meeting with the lawyer. Dante's arm tightened around me briefly before releasing. Yes. But Emma? Waking up with you. It felt good. I looked up at him in the dim morning light filtering through the curtains. His expression was unguarded in a way I'd never seen. Vulnerable. It did, I admitted. Something passed between us then, an acknowledgement of something neither of us was ready to name. 2 hours later, we sat in Richard Whitmore's office, a place of leather chairs and mahogany furniture that smelled of old books and discretion. Dante had insisted on having 2 bodyguards outside and 1 in the room, standing silently near the door. Whitmore was older, maybe 60, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He looked at me with sympathy. Miss Hartley, or is it Mrs. Valentino now? Valentino, Dante answered before I could, his hand finding mine on the armrest. Whitmore nodded, then pulled out a locked box from his desk drawer. Your father came to me 8 months ago, Miss Hart, Mrs. Valentino. He was frightened but determined. He'd discovered something about the Romano family's operations, and he knew they'd kill him for it. Why didn't he go to the police? I asked. He tried, but the Romanos have deep connections in law enforcement. Every attempt he made was quietly shut down. Whitmore unlocked the box, so he came to me with a different plan. He documented everything, every transaction, every illegal operation, every bribe, and he gave it all to me with specific instructions. He pulled out a thick envelope and a small external hard drive. This drive contains copies of all the financial records, communications, and evidence he compiled, enough to put Vincent Romano and his entire organization in prison for life. Whitmore's expression was grave. He also took out a life insurance policy for $2 million. The Romanos financed it, thinking he'd name them as beneficiaries. Instead, he named you, knowing they'd come looking for that money. Why? I breathed. Why put a target on my back? Because he knew they'd come after you anyway, once he was dead. He was counting on the fact that you'd do what you just did. Seek me out. Find this evidence. Whitmore handed me the envelope. Inside are instructions. He wanted you to take this evidence and disappear. Start a new life somewhere safe, far from the Romanos' reach. The insurance money was meant to make that possible. I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a letter in my father's handwriting. My darling Emma, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I'm sorry I got involved with these people. I'm sorry I couldn't protect myself better. But most of all, I'm sorry for what I'm about to ask of you. The evidence on this drive can destroy the Romano family, but using it will put you in terrible danger. That's why I've left you another option. Take the money and run. Live a good life somewhere far away. Find happiness. That's all I ever wanted for you. But if you decide to fight, if you decide to finish what I started, know that I'm proud of you. Your mother and I raised a strong, brave woman. Whatever you choose, you have my blessing. I love you, Emma. Forever and always. Dad, tears streamed down my face. Beside me, Dante had gone very still. May I see the drive? He asked Whitmore. The lawyer hesitated, looking at me. I nodded, and he handed it over. Dante pulled out his phone, connecting the drive to it with an adapter. His expression grew darker with each passing moment as he scrolled through files. This is everything, he said finally, his voice tight with controlled fury. Bank records, shipping manifests, recordings of conversations. Emma, your father was a genius. This doesn't just implicate Vincent. It connects the Romanos to 3 other major crime families, shows their entire network. What does that mean? I asked. It means this drive is worth dying for, and killing for. Dante looked at Whitmore. The Romanos know about this, don't they? That's why they've been threatening her. They suspect your father left evidence somewhere. They've been searching for it since his death. Whitmore folded his hands. Mrs. Valentino, you have 3 choices. 1. Take the money and disappear as your father suggested. 2. Turn this evidence over to federal authorities and hope they can protect you during the investigation and trial. 3. He glanced at Dante. Let your husband handle it his way. What's my way? I asked Dante. His smile was cold, dangerous. Use this evidence as leverage. Make the Romanos know that if anything happens to you, if you disappear or have an accident, this information goes to every federal agency and media outlet in the country. Make yourself too dangerous to kill. That's assuming they act rationally, Whitmore interjected. Vincent Romano is desperate. Desperate men make fatal mistakes. Then we make sure his mistakes cost him everything. Dante's hand tightened on mine. Emma, this is your decision. But know that if you choose to fight, I fight with you. All the way. I looked at the drive, at my father's letter, at the diamond on my finger. 24 hours ago, I'd been a kindergarten teacher whose biggest problem was Marcus's public humiliation. Now I held the power to destroy a crime empire, married to a man who was both my savior and potentially my doom. I want to fight, I said quietly. My father died trying to stop them. I won't let that be for nothing. Dante's expression softened, and he brought my hand to his lips. Then we fight. That evening, as we dressed for dinner at the Romano estate, the weight of what we were about to do settled over me like a shroud. Maria had helped me into a deep burgundy dress that hugged my curves and made me look sophisticated, dangerous. Diamond earrings, Dante's, borrowed from some collection I didn't want to think about, sparkled at my ears. Dante emerged from his closet in a black suit that probably cost more than my car, and my breath caught. He looked every inch the powerful crime boss, dangerous and devastatingly handsome. Ready? He asked, offering his hand. No, I admitted. But let's go anyway. The drive to the Romano estate was tense. Dante's hand never left mine, his thumb tracing absent patterns on my skin. When we pulled through the gates of a mansion that looked like something from a movie, my pulse kicked into overdrive. Vincent Romano waited at the entrance, flanked by men in suits who were clearly armed. He was older than I'd expected, maybe 70, with silver hair and cold eyes that assessed me like I was a commodity. Valentino, he said, his voice carrying old-world charm that didn't reach his eyes. And the new Mrs. Valentino, welcome to my home. Vincent. Dante's tone was cordial, but edged with warning. His arm slid around my waist, pulling me close. Thank you for the invitation. We were led into a dining room that dripped with ostentatious wealth. Crystal chandeliers, oil paintings, a table that could seat 20. Marcus and Victoria were already there, and I saw Marcus's face go pale when he saw me on Dante's arm. Emma, Victoria said with false brightness. What a lovely dress. Dante, you have exquisite taste. In all things, Dante replied smoothly, his hand sliding possessively down my back. Dinner was a psychological battlefield. Vincent asked invasive questions about our relationship, trying to catch us in lies. Dante deflected masterfully, weaving a story of secret meetings and stolen moments that sounded almost believable. He touched me constantly, a hand on my thigh under the table, fingers playing with my hair, lips brushing my temple, and I responded, leaning into him, laughing at his remarks, playing the role of the besotted wife. But beneath the performance, something real was building. Each touch burned. Each whispered word in my ear made my pulse race. The line between acting and reality was blurring dangerously. Marcus watched it all with barely concealed fury. "I have to say, Emma," he finally spoke up, his voice tight, "this is quite the upgrade from the simple life you claim to want. People change," I said calmly, meeting his eyes. "Or maybe you just never really knew me." "Careful, Romano," Dante said softly, but there was steel beneath the silk. "That's my wife you're addressing." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Vincent cleared his throat. "Marcus, perhaps you should focus on your own fiancé." He turned to me, his smile predatory. "Mrs. Valentino, I understand your father was quite the accountant. Did he ever discuss his work with you?" Here it was, the real reason for this dinner. "Sometimes," I said carefully, "but I never understood the technical details. Numbers aren't really my forte." "No, that's unfortunate. You see, your father handled some accounts for my family before his untimely death. We've been unable to locate certain records, and we thought perhaps he might have mentioned them to you." Dante's hand tightened on my thigh, a warning. "I'm sorry," I said, "but I don't know anything about my father's client files. After he died, I was focused on grieving, not on his business affairs." Vincent's eyes narrowed. "And yet, I hear you recently came into a substantial insurance settlement." "Yes. My father provided for me, as any good father would." I met his gaze steadily, channeling every ounce of courage I possessed. "Is there a problem?" "No problem at all," Vincent said, but his tone suggested otherwise. "I simply find it interesting that your father, who claimed to be drowning in debt, had the resources to secure such a generous policy. Perhaps you didn't know him as well as you thought." Dante interjected smoothly. "Emma, amore, you're looking pale. Should we take some air?" He stood, pulling me with him, and Vincent had no choice but to allow it. We stepped out onto a terrace overlooking manicured gardens, his bodyguards maintaining a discreet distance. "You did well," Dante murmured, his lips against my ear. "But Vincent knows something. We need to be careful." "Dante, I'm scared." "I know." He turned me to face him, his hands cupping my face. "But you're also brave, braver than you realize." His thumb traced my lower lip. "Emma, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have said from the beginning." "What?" "This started as an obligation, a promise to your father. But somewhere between last night and this morning, between watching you sleep and waking up with you in my arms, it became something else." His dark eyes held mine. "I want you, Emma. Not as a responsibility or a piece in some game. I want you as my wife, in truth, not just in name." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Dante, you don't have to answer now, but when this is over, when the Romanos are destroyed and you're truly safe, I want you to stay. Not because you're trapped or scared, but because you choose to." Before I could respond, the terrace doors burst open. Carlo stood there, his expression urgent. "Boss, we have a problem. The feds just raided 3 of Vincent's properties. Someone tipped them off." Dante's expression went cold. "When?" 10 minutes ago. Vincent just got the call." We rushed back inside to find chaos. Vincent was on the phone, shouting in Italian. Marcus looked panicked. When Vincent saw us, his face twisted with rage. "You," he snarled at Dante. "You did this. You distracted me with this dinner while your people—" "I had nothing to do with federal raids," Dante said calmly. "But it seems someone did. Perhaps you have enemies you're not aware of." Vincent's hand moved toward his jacket, but Dante was faster. In a heartbeat, he had me behind him, his own weapon drawn, pointed at Vincent's chest. "Don't," Dante said softly. "Don't make this mistake, Vincent. You shoot me, my family burns your empire to the ground. You hurt my wife, and I'll make sure you beg for death before I grant it. The standoff lasted an eternity. Finally, Vincent lowered his hand. Get out, he spat. Get out of my house. Dante backed toward the exit, keeping me behind him, his weapon never wavering. We made it to the car, surrounded by his security, and only when we were speeding away did I allow myself to breathe. What just happened? I gasped. Someone used that drive, Dante said grimly. Someone sent copies of your father's evidence to the FBI, but we have the only copy. I stopped, realization dawning. Unless my father made backups. Smart man, Dante said, a hint of admiration in his voice. He must have had a trigger set up. If he died, the evidence would automatically be sent after a certain period of time. He protected you from beyond the grave. So it's over? The Romanos are finished? Not yet. The raids will hurt them, but Vincent is slippery. He'll have contingencies, lawyers, ways to distance himself from the worst of it. Dante pulled me against him as the car sped through the night, but he's wounded now, distracted. And that gives us an opportunity. To do what? His smile was dark, dangerous. To finish this, once and for all. The next week was a blur. Federal indictments came down against Vincent Romano and 15 members of his organization. Marcus's father was arrested at his office, led out in handcuffs while cameras rolled. The Romano empire began to crumble, associates turning on each other, deals falling apart. And through it all, I stayed by Dante's side. In his bed at night, at his side during the day, learning to navigate his world of danger and power. The threat against me diminished as the Romanos became too focused on survival to worry about revenge. But even as safety returned, I didn't leave. Didn't ask for my freedom, because somewhere between the fear and the danger, between the lies and the truth, I'd fallen in love with the man who'd saved me. 3 months later, I stood in the penthouse wearing a different dress. This one white, simple, beautiful. In front of a small gathering of Dante's family and mine, we renewed vows we'd never actually taken. But this time, they were real. I, Emma, take you, Dante, I said, my voice steady. To be my husband, my partner, my love. Not because I'm trapped or scared, but because I choose you. Every day, I choose you. Dante's eyes were bright with emotion as he slid a wedding band next to my engagement ring. I, Dante, take you, Emma, to be my wife, my heart, my salvation. You walked into my darkness and brought light. You're the best thing I've ever done, the only truly good thing in my life. When he kissed me, it was tender and fierce all at once, a promise of forever. Later, as we danced at the small reception, I caught sight of Marcus through the window of a restaurant across the street. He was alone, watching, and I saw the moment he truly understood. I wasn't the girl he'd left behind. I was Dante Valentino's wife, protected, cherished, loved, and I'd never been happier. What are you thinking? Dante murmured against my ear. That my father would be proud, I said. He saved me by leading me to you. No, tesoro. Dante's arms tightened around me. You saved yourself. I was just lucky enough to be there when you needed me. As the music swelled and the city lights twinkled around us, I rested my head against my husband's chest and knew, finally, that I was home. Not in a place, but in his arms. Forever,